Okay, folks, welcome. This is the video on Toon 4. It's mostly just capping off with our basic toolkits or methods for working in Toon Boom, where we had discussed in the last notes, Toon Boom 3, transitions, and how keyframes transition with things like tension, bias, and continuity. And then we're going to cap it off today with learning about ease, which is the acceleration between two keyframes. How will that affect where the in-betweens are placed for those? So for that, I want to start us off in our PacMan scene, and I want to show you basically why you don't need to worry about ease in this one. So in here, our PacMan and our Ghost are, by our reckoning, supposed to be moving at the same speed throughout. So what we are describing is a linear transition between our keyframe locations. So if I go ahead and select my PacMan peg and show my control, the point of this assignment was to place the keyframes at the locations and in time at an appropriate spacing so that my transitions throughout remained linear in their progression. So you can see there's even spacing about throughout to keep this ball moving at an even pace. Okay? And so that was by design, right? We wanted the PacMan to maintain its linear speed. Now, at the top of the notes, I'm showing you that you can open up a peg and see where the keyframes are at for the individual tools. And this is sort of a reminder that you should be making sure you're using the tools that are up here. And because if you press F6 to set a keyframe, it's going to keyframe all of your channels, just like if you hit S in Maya. So make sure if you're just using the tools on the peg, it will be only setting the keyframes for the appropriate tools. So here are my leftover rotation keyframes. And so again, if I have this closed, all you see is that there's keyframes here and here, but you don't necessarily know that on this one, you're getting move and rotate, whereas on this one, you're getting rotate also. Or you're just getting rotate, no translate. And so there's only keyframes here and here. And then so this is a rotate keyframe that's the same as this one so that it stays pointing that direction. And then the next frame I immediately switch it to this next one, or next direction rather. And then this is the same directional keyframe. And then I rotate it again to face this way. So again, I'm just showing you at the top of the notes, hey, we can look at the individual channels to double check where things are keyframed and in what way. So, why that will matter? Well, today we're going to be doing a ball bounce. And as you'll remember, your ball bounce is going to have three distinct things. It's going to have your translate keyframes. Where is the ball at in time? So describing the top and the bottom of the bounces. It's going to have scale, where you use your squash and your stretch, right? And finally, it's going to have rotate keyframes for the ball spinning throughout. Okay, so you are going to be using the three different tools and setting discrete keyframes for each of them. And like the issue that we had with the graph editor, if you set keyframes on everything, you are going to have to go back and delete some of those leftover keyframes you don't need anymore. So that's where we're at. So we're going to go in and set some keyframes, and then we're going to describe those transitions between those keyframes using our ease. So let's look at this question here at the bottom real quick. What are some factors that you need to consider as you animate in Toon Boom? So the primary one would be, if you're doing a bigger animation, your storyboards, right? Do you have all your pre-production handled? Okay, great. Now you're actually at the animation step. So you have your storyboards, or you don't. You're just doing my assignment, okay? So do you have all the assets you need? So in this case, the assets you need, a ball, a pedestal, ground plane. So got to make those assets. Then we'll put them in pegs and establish the hierarchy. In our case, the ball is the only thing that needs to be pegged and put in the hierarchy. Then we'll go through and set our keyframes. And then the in-betweens are what we're going to talk about when we talk about ease. So let's handle the first 3 steps. Assets. So I'm going to go make a new scene, and we'll call this Demo BB. Create that. And so let's give that a second. All right. So step 1 are our assets. What do we need to make for this scene? So I have a blank drawing layer here. I'm going to reserve this for I'll put this as ground. I'm going to make a new drawing layer, and this will be for pedestal. Whoops. Pedestal, add, and ball. Add and close. Okay, so I have 3 drawing layers now. Ground plane. I'm just going to make a new color. This will be ground. Whoops. What? Okay, whatever. Okay, ground. We'll go in here. Make it brown. Okay, great. I'm on my rectangle tool. I'm just going to make a rectangle that's slightly bigger than the camera. Great. Fill it in. There's my ground. Perfect. Now, make a new color. This is going to be pedestal. Okay. My pedestal, I'm going to make like a sky blue. Go on my pedestal layer. Make a rectangle here. Great. Fill it in. Cool. Pedestal, ground, ball. So I'm going to make my ball out here in the middle, and then we'll move it around. So my ball, make another color for that. Go for the aesthetic. Holding shift, fill it in. Oh, you know what? Alright, cool. That's my ball. So, now I got my ball, my pedestal, my ground. I'm also going to want to extend my exposure out here to 150, so I'm going to give myself some time to animate all of this stuff. I can always remove unnecessary time at the end, although I think that's the right amount of time. So, let's go back to our notes. So we created our assets, and they have the proper amount of exposure. Pegs and hierarchy. So the only thing that we need to worry about is putting the ball into its own peg. So let's select the ball and put that into a peg. Cool. Oh, I need to add a color card. Hold on, let me add a color card. Okay, now I got a white background. Cool. So I'm on my ball peg. Great. Next step is to start setting my keyframes. So what needs to be moved, rotated, and scaled, and when. So just like the first time that we did our ball bounce, let's take this in passes. So I'm going to start with the primary thing, which is to set my translate keyframes for my ball. Where is it at what time? So for starters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be on my ball drawing layer, and I'm going to move my ball drawing. I clicked and dragged around it. I'm going to move it up here to the top of this, and I'm going to scale my drawing down. And again, I'm doing this on the drawing layer with it selected using the select tool, not the scale tool. So I'm resizing the drawing, and that's important to understand because my scale factor for this layer is still a solid 1 and 1, right? That's what we want to maintain. 100% being 1, right? So let me scale this down. Okay, I think that's about the right size that I want to set. Okay, cool. So now we can go ahead and, frankly, I'm going to just hit F6 here on frame 1, so we'll keyframe everything at frame 1. And then we are following our classic reference here. So this is 9 frames to the ground, so 18. So we'll go 18 frames forward. Oops, that's 17. Here's 18. Grab my translate tool, and again, we're setting translates first. So I'm going to go ahead and move my pivot point into the center of the ball. Frame 18, we're going to put the ball down here. And before I go any further, I want to turn on my control. So view, show, control. Boom. You can see that this does not have any arc. We'll deal with that in a second. So let me go and, what is it? 8? It's 16, right? So 16 forward from 18, so 34. So now I'm describing where's the top of this bounce, and so it's doing the same thing it was doing in Maya, where it wants to bend through the ground because it's trying to be a homie. We'll go fix that with tension in a second. So this was 16 frames. I'm going to go another 16 on this bad boy, which puts me at 50. Let's bring this down a little bit. Okay. And then the next one. Okay, so hold on. We're a little close to the top there. I think this is okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 2, so 14. So I get a 64. Bring it up and over. A little lower. Okay. And then 12 frames from here. So 7 times 2, now 6 times 2. So this is 64, so I want 76. Alright, so you know what, I don't need to stop here. I'm going to keep going. Okay, so we're here. This is going to go back up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, so 10 frames in the future. So 84, and then we're up like here, right? Pretty short. And then 8 frames from here, so this is 84, so 92. And we'll go 8 frames from here, so hundo. And 6 frames. Let's see, that's the 4th bounce. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we got to just decay this off. So this is another 6 frames. And then we'll go 4 frames. And then 4 frames. Then back down in 3. Yeah, this obviously is not going to be timed out appropriately, just so we're on the same page about that. Okay, so here's what we got so far. Yoink. Okay, that looks certified terrible. So, oh, hold on. I do also... This isn't going to arc properly because it's the start of the arc, so I'm going to pull this up. I'm also going to zoom in. So I'm doing this on frame 3 here, and this is going to define my arc here. Okay, there we go. So now I got, this is frame 4. Okay. So now I got this. So let's talk about what we got here. So we got translate keyframe set, and if I pop this open, you'll see that it's only set keyframes on my translation because I've been using the translate tool and not hitting F6. So here we are with our ball peg. Now, whereas before, when we wanted our ball bounce in the in Maya to have the immediate rebound from the ground, and we had to go in and mess with the tangent handles, well, we've already learned the appropriate way to fix that from our work with PacMan. So unlike needing to work with the tangent handles, we can go into our layer properties and just go to these keyframes that are the bottom of our bounces. And again, this is where we want it to be going directly to the point and rebounding, right? So tension at the bottom of our bounces should be 1. And you can see how that tightens my arc there, right? So we come here. This is again at the bottom of the bounce. We want it to continue directly into the point. So we're going to increase tension to 1. We'll go here. Tension through this point to 1. Go to here. Tension through this point to 1. Let's go here. Tension to 1. Here. Tension to 1. Here. Tension to 1. 1. Okay. So now you can see how that's changed just the shape of our arcs here alone. Now, before I even close this up, we are using positive tension. What if we want it to actually be looser through certain areas? We want it to be arc more exaggerated, let's say, than it otherwise would. Well, at the top of your bounces, so now I'm going to go back. Let me close this, reopen it. There we go. So now we're going to deal with the top of the bounces. So if I go to the top of this bounce and I give it a nice, I don't know, like negative 0.5 here, see how that's going to widen out that arc. So again, I'm just going through and setting some tension stuff in here. I haven't even messed with the acceleration stuff yet, so negative 0.4 probably good here. Then we'll go here for a little negative 0.3. Go here for a little negative 0.2. Go here a little negative 0.1. Okay. Minor tweaks. Alright, so that's our ease, or I mean our tension. Alright, so this brings us to the actual lesson for today. So, setting ease. Now, when we were in our PacMan, PacMan's supposed to have a linear speed throughout. And the default ease type is obviously linear. In-betweens are evenly spaced from one another. Now, ease describes the rate that we're transitioning to the position of the next keyframe. So, basically, how quickly it either leaves at the starting keyframe or how quickly it arrives at the ending keyframe. So we have linear, rapid in, which looks like this arc where the arc bends to the top left. That means that it will rapidly approach what the next keyframe looks like and slow into that keyframe's appearance. By contrast, with the slow in ease types, that will slowly build out of the keyframe you're on and then rapidly approach your finishing keyframe as you get closer to that in time. So if it bends up to the left, it is going to look like the next keyframe quicker. If it bends down and to the right, it will remain looking like your current frame for longer. Alright? So let's talk about how we want to use that. So as you can see, all of my keyframes are evenly spaced right now. So we want the keyframes to build, or the in-betweens rather, to build up speed as it approaches the ground. Which is to say that we want more of our frames at the beginning and then less of our in-betweens towards the end of this space. So not the one at the very top, because that one, for this case, this is defining the arc for me. So I'm going to click this one, my frame on frame 3, and I want this to slowly build into the next keyframe, which means I want a slow in ease type. And you'll see now all of my frames, my in-betweens, are more spaced here, and then there's more space in between them down here, right? So now you can see spends more of my frames up here, and then it moves fast through there. Let's play it as it is right now. So you can see it quickly approaches the ground and then methodical, right? So let's keep it going. So we've defined this from here to here. Now we're defining from here to here. How do we want this to go? Well, we're trying to rebound from the ground, right? So we want it to quickly rise off the ground and then slow into the top. So we want a rapid in type of acceleration type. And so it's rapidly approaching into the next keyframe and then slows as it gets there. So more space here, less space between the in-betweens up here. So now we're up here. Great. Now we want these the other way. We want the, whoops. Now we want this one. There we go. We want it to slow out of being at the top of the bounce and then accelerate towards the ground. So we want to slow in to our next keyframe. And then we want to rapidly release from the ground. So we're going to go back to, we're going to click on the ground keyframe here. Rapid out. And you will notice, obviously, there's more, the curves are lessened on some of these other ones. So I am using the most exaggerated ones right now because I'm demonstrating this. So just note that. Is this set right? Yeah. Okay, so here's what this looks like right now. And there's my linear ones, right? So let's look at it again. See, it has that nice weight as it falls. So again, I'm heavily exaggerating the speed. As you go further through this, obviously, you want the less exaggerated curves, right? To lessen how much you're exaggerating the ease in this case. So, last question on here. In-betweens. So, in our case, we set the motion keyframes, or the translate keyframes, and so we went and adjust the tension for those. We also, in continuity and bias, you'll almost never use. Just by the way. So, tension, and then ease. In fact, let's just do this. So, so let's go back to here. So what are some of the other things that you're going to need to do on this? Again, I'm not going to go through and I'm not going to finalize this. I'm just going to, so okay, translate keyframes are great. So this is where I want to point out, hey, don't set keyframes on everything at all times. So you can see here, the black keyframes are where there are actual keyframes on that channel. So you can see just my position keyframes are set right now, with the exception of frame 1. So now let's go scale, right? So we want our ball to stretch throughout this. So let's go here to the ground is frame 18, so frame 17, right? Just like we did before. We're gonna stretch this. And what's great is if you have this open, you can see the values here. And since you want about the equivalent stretch and squash, if I'm plus 0.4 on this, I should be minus 0.4 on this. Doesn't have to be perfect. And some of you are probably looking at this like, oh, I gotta adjust the rotate. We'll get there. Hold on a sec. So let's just go through, do what we need to do here. So again, scale keyframes, great. Okay, let's go here. Let's go ahead and set some scale keyframes for this. So let me go scale this out. Okay. And it should probably come off the ground when you squash it, right? So you're going to need to go grab your translate tool and just quickly adjust that real quick. Okay. So then we got kablam. And then usually, like I would tell you in Maya, we go 2 frames after the ground, and that's when you're going to hit your rebound. So in this case, I'll go 1.3. Okay. Let's scale this in. Okay. And then we get to the top of our bounce, and this is what's great about this, is that just like in Maya, set this back to 1, set this back to 1, boom. Same thing all over again. So here we are right before the ground. Let me stretch this out a little bit. Squeeze it in a little bit. Great. Okay. Now we're on the ground plane again. Stretch. Squash. And then I'm going to fix it with my translate tool. Great. Squash. So 2 frames off the ground again, when you're able. When you're able to. But 2 frames off the ground. Oh, I stretched it way too far. Okay. Scale this in. Very good. Back up to the top. 1, 1. And the cycle continues. So let me go zoom out. How's this looking so far? Now, every year I have some enterprising students that want to add ease to the scale keyframes. Okay. Sure. Not really going to grade you on it, though. Just so we're on the same page. So anyway, we got that. Now here's one thing about the rotate for the ball. This is rotating the peg, right? This is so just like when you could rotate the squash disc on the ball independently of the actual ball, this is the ball's rotation, not the squash's rotation. Or this is the squash's rotation, not the ball's rotation, is how I want to describe this. So if I go to here and I take my rotate tool and I'm on this, this rotates the trajectory of the ball, or of the squash rather. So I'm going to rotate that to there, and we're going to be doing the same thing that we were doing with the first rotation pass in Maya, which was the butt scooting. So then it hits the ground. Okay, you can zero this out. Then you go to here, and you just tweak it so that it's oriented the right way. Go back to the top, zero it out. Then you go to here, angle it the right way. Okay, great. Get it to the bottom, zero it out. Go to this one, tweak it a little bit. Great. Go to the top, zero it out. And so again, when you're doing this rotate, it's just to correct for the direction the ball is squashing in. So we're going to get the ball to rotate throughout here in a second. So essentially, in order, you should be doing your translate keyframes, doing the tension and ease for your translate keyframes, scale for squash and stretch, do your squash and stretch throughout. Again, I'm only doing a little bit of it because I'm demoing. You should be doing the whole thing. Once you have your squash and stretch set, then you can use the rotation on your ball peg to go through and adjust for what I call the butt scooting. Again, you're adjusting the directional angle that the squash and stretch is happening in, basically, so correcting to follow the path of the control. And then this is the final step. So once this is all set, so let me go ahead and play this as it is. So we got the ball, butt scooting, animating, squash and stretch. Again, I did not finish everything, so it doesn't look good past a certain point. Now, I'm going to add a peg within my peg. I know, crazy. This ball is going to go into a peg inside of the peg that we've been animating on all day. And just so we're all on the same page here, this is only ball roto. Only ball roto. And by default, so let me move this peg up here. I want it in the same spot basically as the other one. Or at least in the center of the ball per se. And I'm going to set a keyframe. Here on frame 1. I'm going to go, let's say, all the way to the end of where my ball is on the ground over here. And just like we did with the ball in Maya, this only ball roto peg has no keyframes of any kind, so I can just spin the ball a bunch. right? And so now, if I click on this, you'll see that my diamond in there is now rotating throughout. So then there's just a peg that only controls the rotation for the ball overall. And the rotation on this ball peg is controlling this ball that is inside this ball roto that is spinning it. So again, this is the very last step, is adding this sub peg. So that will be the end of it. So again, in order, setting your translate keyframes. Where is the ball at in time? Then you'll go through and set the tension from in the path editor for the correct frames. 1 for the bottom of the bounces, anywhere from -0.5 to 0 for the top of the bounces for tension. Then you'll go through and set the ease from one keyframe into the next, either using the slow ins or the rapid ins, and or the lesser versions of them. Once all of your translate has been done appropriately, then you go through and do squash and stretch with the scale tool. Set those keyframes to the appropriate times. Then you will go through on the ball peg with the rotate tool and adjust the directionality of the ball squashing and stretching so that it is following the path of your control. Then you will add the ball drawing into a new peg within your main peg. That it will be a sub peg that only controls the ball's rotation. Then that peg you will spin the ball with the rotate tool a bunch. And then your main peg that you've been working on will drive that rotation so that your ball is spinning throughout as it goes through the paths that you set for it. Okay, folks, that's the ball bounce. There it is. So hop to it. Thanks for watching.